Today, we will talk about two significant figures in the Bible who played a crucial role in the religious history of Judea in the 1st century after Christ. These two personalities are Annas and Caiaphas. At that time the region of Judea was under Roman occupation and the temple in Jerusalem was the epicenter of religious and cultural life. Annas and Caiaphas emerged as prominent leaders in the Jewish world. Their names intersect in the biblical accounts, and their influence is inescapable in the plot of Jesus' crucifixion and the events surrounding this pivotal event in Christian history. But before we start, what do you think if you leave a good like and subscribe so you don't miss any more content? And without further ado, let's get started. The Roman occupation had brought with it a system of government that left local leaders little room for maneuver. This led to a complex relationship between the Jewish religious leaders, who were responsible for maintaining order in the Temple of Jerusalem, while the Roman authorities sought to maintain political control and maintain peace. The Temple in Jerusalem was the spiritual and religious heart of Jewish life. Every year, thousands of pilgrims came there to offer sacrifices and fulfill their religious duties. This gave it powerful symbolism and high political value to those who controlled the temple. In this context of Roman occupation and high religious tension, Annas and Caiaphas emerged as influential religious leaders. Both belonged to the powerful sect of the Sadducees, who did not believe in the resurrection. Their position as high priests made them central figures in the life Jewish religion and gave them power and authority over temple affairs. It is important to remember that the relationship between Jewish and Roman religious leaders was complex and often tense. The Roman occupation generated a constant fear of revolt and loss of privileges. This tension provides the backdrop for understanding the actions and decisions of Annas and Caiaphas, especially in relation to their participation in the arrest and trial of Jesus. So with this historical context in mind, we will continue to explore who Annas and Caiaphas were. Annas not only held the office of high priest once as was common, but he did so on several occasions, a fact that underlines his significance in the Jewish religious leadership of the time. The first appointment of him occurred around 6 AD during the rule of Quirinius, the governor of Syria, and he held office until about AD 15. During his time as high priest, Annas established a system of appointment in his family, thus ensuring continuity in religious power. His control over the high priesthood gave him considerable power in the temple in Jerusalem. He was responsible for overseeing rituals, administering sacrifices, and enforcing religious laws. This position not only made him a religious leader, but also a key political figure, as the temple was a center of power and control in Jewish society. Annas also controlled the temple tax and the currency exchange. In Luke chapter 19 verse 45, we see that Jesus expelled them from the temple, accusing them of turning it into a den of robbers, thus prostituting religion, the business of animal sellers and the moneylenders in the temple. It was the best business in the city. The Jewish Talmud declares that the house of Annas was cursed, rich and unscrupulous, along with the corrupt leaders of the priesthood, whose presence defiled the sanctuary. It is believed that this regret was due to his plotting to plan persecutions. On the other hand, Caiaphas married the daughter of Annas. Both families were rich and belonged to the aristocracy. Caiaphas was appointed high priest around AD 18, and his appointment marked a key point in the biblical narrative. Like his father-in-law Annas, Caiaphas assumed a leadership role in the Jerusalem temple and in the broader Jewish community. His relationship with Annas is interesting and significant. Although Annas no longer held the position of high priest at that time, his influence was still palpable. Caiaphas, by marrying Annas' daughter, became part of a priestly dynasty that maintained considerable control over religious and political affairs in Judea. One of Caiaphas' most notable contributions to the biblical narrative was after Jesus raised Lazarus. The news that Jesus had raised Lazarus reached the council, and at the council Caiaphas asked the famous question found in the Gospel of John chapter 11. Verses 49 and 50 inches. You know nothing, nor consider that it is expedient for us that one man should die for the people, and not that the whole nation should perish. This statement by Caiaphas referred to the belief that the death of Jesus would prevent a revolt and protect the interests of the Jewish religious leadership. Caiaphas' statement was like a prophecy that Jesus would die for the entire nation, and not just for the entire nation, but also to gather into one the children of God who were dispersed. The biblical story narrates that after Caiaphas' declaration, everyone in the council from that day agreed to kill Jesus. During Jesus' ministry, tensions between him and the Jewish religious leadership, represented largely by Annas and Caiaphas, gradually increased. Jesus preached a religious reform that challenged some of the teachings and practices established by the religious leadership of his time. This put him in direct conflict with the religious authorities. It was in this context that Jesus was arrested and brought before the high priest for questioning. First, Jesus was brought before Annas, and then before Caiaphas, who was the acting high priest at the time. These interrogations marked a critical point in the biblical narrative. During the interrogation, Annas and Caiaphas sought evidence against Jesus to support accusations of blasphemy and sedition. However, Jesus maintained a largely silent stance and offered no convincing defense. These interrogations led to the decision to send Jesus to the Roman governor Pontius Pilate to be tried and condemned. Importantly, Annas and Caiaphas played an active role in the decision to accuse Jesus and in pushing for him to be sentenced to death. Their political and religious influence greatly contributed to the subsequent crucifixion of Jesus on Mount Golgotha. After the resurrection of Jesus Christ, Caiaphas, he refused to accept the evidence that Jesus had risen. For this reason he imprisoned and wanted to kill Peter and John, and later participated in the death of Stephen. Caiaphas also authorized Saul to arrest any Christians he found in Damascus. Caiaphas played an important role in the persecution of Jesus' followers, as he considered them a threat to the religious and political authority of the time. However, around the year 36, Caiaphas was deposed by Vitellius, the Roman governor of Syria. At the same time Pilate was also deposed. Finally, Caiaphas died miserably murdered and dragged away in the taking of Jerusalem by the Romans. During this taking of Jerusalem the temple was destroyed, just as Jesus had prophesied. The tomb of Caiaphas' family was discovered in 1990 while a road was being built in an old cave hidden on the slopes of Jerusalem. And on the other hand, Annas died crazy, banging his head against the walls, after verifying that he had killed the Messiah. And as an additional note, Matthias, the grandson of Annas, son of Theophilus, was appointed by Agrippa II as high priest in 65, replacing Jesus of Gamala. He was the last high priest before the destruction of the temple and the destruction of Jerusalem that Jesus had prophesied. All the books of the Sadducees were burned during this event. Without further ado, God bless you and see you in a future video.